My wife said, I can't leave him, while I found her luggage already packed for his place. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, and my mind went completely blank. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hands still gripping the doorframe of our bedroom, my eyes locked on the suitcase by the bed. It was packed, neatly, almost methodically, as if she had planned this. There were clothes, toiletries, everything you'd expect for a stay at someone else's house. I didn't know how long I had been standing there, staring at it, but when she walked out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her, looking so innocent, I felt like the entire world was spinning out of control. Her eyes met mine, and she froze, just as I did. We both stood there in the stillness, her expression shifting quickly from confusion to something else. Guilt, maybe? I couldn't tell. But in that moment, I realized she knew. She knew I'd seen it, seen the luggage, seen the clear evidence of what was happening. Chris, it's not what you think, she said, her voice strained but soft, almost like she was trying to convince herself more than she was trying to convince me. She ran her hand through her damp hair and walked toward me slowly, as if everything could be undone with a few carefully chosen words. But I wasn't listening anymore. I felt the heat rising in my face. Not what I think. You're leaving me. You're leaving us. The words were out of my mouth before I could even stop them. The pain of it all slammed into me in waves. You're leaving with him, aren't you? She closed her eyes, a deep breath escaping her lips as if she was trying to hold it all together, trying to stay calm. Chris, please, just let me explain. It's complicated, okay? Complicated? I nearly shouted. I took a step forward, barely holding myself together, my hands shaking. No, it's not complicated. You're packing to leave me for another man, and you're standing here telling me it's complicated? You've been with him, haven't you? All this time, while we were supposed to be working on our marriage, you've been... I couldn't even finish the sentence. The reality of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't just leaving me. She was leaving me for him. I wasn't sure how much time passed after that, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything but watch her stand there, try to look at me like everything was still okay, like this was just some misunderstanding that could be easily fixed. But it wasn't. Nothing about this was okay. She stepped toward me, eyes pleading, but I took a step back instinctively, like her proximity would somehow make it worse. And maybe it would have. Chris, I never meant for this to happen. I love you, but I can't leave him. I'm so sorry. You've been such a good husband, and I don't want to hurt you, but I can't keep pretending that it's not what it is. Her words were like ice water in my veins. I felt numb, but also hot, like I was burning from the inside out. My vision blurred, but I kept my eyes fixed on her. I couldn't look away. You love him? You love him, and you're standing here telling me that you can't leave him, that I've been a good husband. My voice cracked as the words escaped me. I'm sorry, she whispered, eyes brimming with tears. Sorry doesn't fix this, Amelia, I said through gritted teeth. Sorry doesn't fix the fact that you've been with him behind my back. You've been seeing him, haven't you? While we were working through our shit. While I was trying to give you space. You were just waiting for the right moment to break this to me. Is that it? Is that what you were doing? My own voice was starting to shake, and I hated it. I hated feeling so powerless, so small. I had given her everything. My trust, my love, my loyalty. And now, here I was, standing in a room that no longer felt like mine, my entire world falling apart. Her gaze fell, and for a second, I thought I saw guilt in her eyes, but it quickly turned into something I couldn't quite place. I don't know how this happened, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't want to be like this. I never wanted to hurt you. But it's just what I feel, Chris. And I can't pretend anymore. I felt a cold rush of anger wash over me, but also a sinking sensation in my gut. This wasn't just about him. It wasn't just about her leaving. It was about everything. The years we had spent together, the promises, the future we had planned. All of it, shattered in a few short minutes. I turned away from her, pacing the room in tight, agitated steps. How long has this been going on, Amelia? Tell me, how long have you been lying to me? She was silent for a moment before speaking again, voice barely above a whisper. It started a few months ago, she said, but it's only been recently that I realized it was more than just a friendship. I never wanted to hurt you, I swear. I didn't want this to happen. Her words, her excuses, felt like they were falling on deaf ears. How could she say she didn't want it to happen when everything she'd done was intentional? How could she not know that letting herself get that close to him, emotionally, physically, whatever, was already a betrayal? I knew better than anyone what it was like to make excuses for someone you loved, but this was different. This was something I could never excuse. I walked over to the suitcase, the one she had packed, and picked it up. It felt like the weight of the world was in my hands. "So what now, Amelia?" I asked, voice tight with frustration. "What happens after you leave? Do you just walk out the door and forget about everything we had?" She looked up at me, her face pale. "I don't want to forget about it, Chris. But I can't keep living a lie. I love him, and I can't pretend that I don't. I'm sorry." I felt like I couldn't breathe. Her words hit me like a blow to the stomach, knocking the wind out of me. She loved him. She was in love with him. And I had been a fool, sitting here thinking that everything was fine, that we could fix things. But we couldn't. Not anymore. We'd been married for 4 years. 4 years of ups and downs, of trying to figure out life together. There were good days, bad days, and everything in between. We weren't perfect. We had our struggles. But I thought we could make it work. I thought we had a future. It was a Tuesday when it all unraveled. A typical Tuesday, nothing special, nothing unusual. I'd come home from work, we'd shared a quick dinner, talked about our day. But something was off, I could tell. She was distant, quieter than usual, and I'd assumed it was just stress from work. But when I found the suitcase, when I saw the packed clothes, when I saw the text from on her phone a few weeks ago that I tried to ignore, "I love you," it all came crashing down. It was no longer a matter of miscommunication. It wasn't just a fight. It was betrayal, plain and simple. I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know if I could trust anyone ever again, not after this. But I knew one thing for sure. This marriage, this life we built together, was over. And I couldn't make her love me if she didn't. I took a deep breath and looked at her one last time. "Go. Just go. You made your choice. You've made it clear that you want him. Don't bother coming back." She nodded silently, tears slipping down her cheeks. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The silence between us said everything. She walked out, and for the first time in years, I felt completely alone. Part 2. The sound of the door closing behind her was like the final nail in a coffin. My heart hammered in my chest, but the numbness that had settled over me felt even stronger than the pain. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the space she'd occupied for so long, wondering how everything had unraveled so quickly. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually I had to move. I paced back and forth, trying to keep my mind busy with anything but the reality of what had just happened. I kept thinking, this can't be real. This can't be happening to me. But it was. And no amount of pacing or deep breaths could change that. I grabbed my phone, mindlessly scrolling through contacts I didn't care about, checking messages that felt irrelevant now. Then my thumb hovered over her name. Part of me still wanted to text her, to call her, to demand an explanation for the explanation she had already given. But I knew it was pointless. She'd made her choice. I wasn't going to change her mind. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and grabbed a beer. I didn't even know why. I didn't drink much. It didn't make sense, but in that moment, it was like the only thing that could distract me from my thoughts. The first sip was bitter, but I kept drinking one after the other until my head began to feel a little fuzzier and the sharp edges of the pain softened just enough to let me breathe. I wasn't numb anymore, but I also wasn't feeling anything that made sense. As the evening dragged on, I tried to busy myself. I threw a frozen pizza in the oven and sat on the couch with the TV on, but I didn't watch it. The hours slipped by, and I couldn't help but replay everything in my mind. The days leading up to this, the moments where I should have known something was off. I thought about all the times she'd pulled away, all the times I told myself she was just tired or stressed, and I realized I had been so blind. I was a fool to think I could fix what was already broken. The next day was no better. I went into work, but everything felt wrong. I was distracted, exhausted, and trying my hardest not to let anyone see how broken I was. It felt like I was walking through someone else's life, like everything was happening to a version of me that wasn't real. I caught myself staring at my phone at least a dozen times, but I never reached out. What would I even say? I couldn't keep doing this to myself. I kept telling myself that the worst was behind me, that I'd get through it. But every little thing reminded me of her. The coffee mug she used every morning was still on the counter. The sweater she always left on the back of the chair was still there. The bed, once shared, now felt empty, like it had never been mine at all. It wasn't until the third day after she left that I actually allowed myself to look at the messages she'd sent me before she left. I had put them off, thinking it would be easier if I just didn't confront the reality of what she'd written. But when I opened the message thread, there they were, the words I tried to ignore. "I'm sorry, Chris. I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant to fall in love with him, but I can't help what I feel. You've been nothing but kind to me, and I'll always love you for that. But I can't keep pretending that things are the same. I can't stay in this relationship out of guilt or obligation anymore. I hope you understand someday." I read it over and over, but the words didn't change. They didn't help. They didn't make me feel better. They just made me angrier. She was sorry, but she didn't want me. She was in love with someone else, and that was the hardest pill to swallow. But it was also the truth. I wasn't sure how long I sat there, staring at the screen, the finality of everything sinking in deeper with every passing second. This was it. This was my life now. I couldn't keep holding on to something that was already gone. I had to move forward. But how? How did I move forward when the person I had trusted with my heart, my life, was already planning her future with someone else? It was hard to know where to start, but I knew I couldn't stay in this apartment. I couldn't keep seeing the remnants of her everywhere. It felt like I was suffocating. So I packed a bag. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I needed to get out. I called a friend who lived a few hours away, told him I needed some space, and he insisted I come stay with him. I didn't want to leave, but I didn't want to stay either. I didn't want to sit in that empty apartment, holding on to the past, waiting for a future that would never come. The drive to his place was long, and the entire time I kept thinking about everything I was leaving behind. I thought about Amelia, and I thought about how broken I felt, but I also thought about how much I deserved better than this. When I got to my friend's house, I didn't feel much better, but I felt a little lighter. It was nice to be in a different space, surrounded by someone who cared about me. I could hear the concern in his voice as I told him about what had happened, and I knew he was trying to comfort me. But what could anyone say? There was no easy fix for what had just happened. Over the next few weeks, I did my best to pull myself together. I didn't talk to Amelia. I didn't reach out to her at all, even though part of me still wanted to know what she was doing, if she was happy. I had to remind myself that she made her decision, and it was time for me to make mine. I started seeing a therapist. It was something I'd avoided for a long time, but I knew I couldn't get through this on my own. I needed help. I needed to make sense of everything. Slowly, I started unpacking the mess of emotions I had been pushing down for so long. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I felt like I was drowning in sadness, but there were also days when I could breathe. Days when I felt like I could stand up straight again. I spent time with my friends, catching up with people I hadn't seen in ages, rebuilding the relationships I had neglected. I picked up new hobbies, things that made me feel like myself again. I found a gym again, and I started to focus on my health, something I had put on the back burner while I was trying to hold everything together for someone else. And little by little, I started to feel like myself again. Not the version of me that was defined by my relationship, but the version of me that was independent and strong. I don't know if I'll ever fully get over what Amelia did. I don't know if I'll ever completely stop wondering what went wrong. But I do know that I'm not the same person I was before she left. And that, in itself, is something to be proud of. I don't need her anymore. And that, for now, is enough.